Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hardware News Recap for the week. In this one, we'll be recapping April Fool's gags, some of them worse than others. NZXT's in there. We'll leave that there for now. ASUS is trying to make the powered motherboard footer thing for video cards a thing properly this time. ASUS also is revising its Q-Release Slim device after it definitely didn't have problems previously. AMD says its 9070 XT is its best-selling AMD Radeon GPU for first week sales in several generations by a lot, and we'll talk about that. Hyte has tariff pricing impact news, and NVIDIA still has stability problems. How the turns have tabled. Before that, this video is brought to you by ID Cooling and the frozen A720 cooler. The A720 air cooler performed well in our testing last year. The A720 is a relatively high-end, dual 140mm air cooler with 7 heat pipes. We found the use of larger fans can be beneficial to acoustic performance given the thermals, although you'll want to check your case for compatibility given the taller nature of the cooler and its fans. ID Cooling uses an all-black look for its A720 and includes mounting hardware for all modern sockets. Learn more at the link in the description below. Up first, a quick one on AMD Radeon. So AMD has conducted an interview talking further about some of the comments we reported on last week, where AMD was saying demand for the GPUs was unprecedented, a word that has been used an unprecedented amount of times since about early 2020 or so, but particularly in the hardware space. Lisa Su conducted an interview with the ASUS China General Manager, Tony Yu, and AMD's CEO further elaborated this.
9070 XT has been a fantastic success. Actually, it's the #1 selling for all of the AMD Radeon generations.
Yes.
For first week sales is by far 10x higher than previous generations.
Addressing supply constraints, AMD also stated this.
Fans will say, oh, come on, give us more.
We are going to, yes, no problem. There's a lot of, we're very excited about it, and we're increasing the manufacturing so that we can have more gamers to have access. Yes.
Multipliers and percentages are always kind of tough to work with for this type of thing, but if they're talking 10x more than all previous AMD Radeon generation first week launches individually, then that is quite a bit of history to compare against. So interesting to hear, but doesn't really help a whole lot in terms of the being able to get it closer to the expected price thing. Up next, ASUS is back in the news for its Q-Release Slim setup. So we previously ran a report where we compiled a bunch of user reports and media outlet reports, such as Unico's Hardware's reporting on the PCIe Q-Release Slim system on motherboards, where basically this is it's supposed to be a quick release where you just angle the GPU out of the socket rather than using a button as in its prior Q-Release or the traditional latch. And so what was happening was when people were using this new Q-Release Slim setup, it was causing at least cosmetic damage, if not potentially some concern for real damage to the pins of the GPU in a specific area. So that part is older news, but what's newer news is ASUS is changing this setup. So originally ASUS sort of challenged the reporting early on and asserted that basically any damage that was being caused was 1, only cosmetic if it existed, and 2, only existed because users weren't removing it at the exact right angle, and then they sort of subtly added some more images to their guide for how to remove a video card. But almost definitely completely unrelated to any of that. There's no connection whatsoever. ASUS has changed how it works. SiteTweakers.net noticed the omission of a metal bar with the company's new PCIe slot design and contacted ASUS, which responded in a message that has been machine translated to say this, quote, yes, a change has been made to the Q-Release Slim system for the new X870 motherboards. Based on user feedback, we have modified the PCIe slot for a Q-Release Slim system, including removing a metal component to reduce the possibility of damage to the video card, end quote. The publication also notes that, quote, stickers have been added to the system to inform users about correct system usage, end quote. Now, previously, sufficient removal and insertion cycles would basically guarantee at least cosmetic damage to it. So that was known. It was to a certain spot on the card. This could theoretically lead to actual damage, but our bigger concern from the whole thing when it was new was if you have well, really any brand, but let's just say if you have a non-ASUS brand card and you remove it from an ASUS board and it scratches it, then we were worried about what would happen in a warranty situation. So if you have a totally unrelated warranty claim, like a MOSFET dies and you send it back, that damage to the PCIe slot could absolutely give a manufacturer reason to say, nope, you caused that damage, we're not going to support it, and hopefully send it back in one piece if they're not following ASUS's approach. So that was always our worry about it, was does it create an avenue to reject warranty claims for otherwise unrelated issues? And so anyway, changing it's good. We have not yet tested the new one to see if it still causes this damage or not. I'm not sure that we're going to bother with it, but probably Unico's hardware will follow up with it because they were kind of running that story for quite a while. All right, while we're talking about ASUS has some motherboards where it's trying to add back in the power slot for video cards to the board. So ASUS has revealed its new Tough Gaming B850 BTF Wi-Fi W motherboard, a surprisingly bereft of extremes name for a board. Although that would be more of a gigabyte thing. The board uses the company's BTF standard. Well, not really standard, but they're trying to make it a thing. We previously have reported on BTF. It's the Back to the Future form factor, and they're trying to get it off the ground. ASUS claims that it, quote, hides all its connectors on the underside of the motherboard, end quote, and delivers up to, quote, 600 watts via a graphics card high power slot, end quote. The idea here is to allow users to create a clean-looking build, but this particular board will also require a compatible video card. Video Cards writes that these are, quote, currently limited to ASUS and Maxon models, end quote. The publication also noted that this motherboard includes the new and aforementioned PCIe key release system. And to appease the shareholder overlords, ASUS also writes, quote, this platform delivers the power and connectivity that advanced AI PC applications demand, end quote. Also known as a computer. It's a computer part, and it does computer things, which might include those applications. Now, we actually contacted ASUS to ask them to elaborate on this, and they sent us this official message.
Brondo's got what plants crave.
Yeah, it's got AI.
And that is a more suitable movie reference than it probably should be, given Terry Crews's link to Jay's 2 cents. We're like one step removed from the actual movie that comes from by that chain, which is crazy to think about. I know the guy who knows the guy who was in the movie we just quoted on screen. Sorry, it wasn't a movie. That was an actual ASUS quote. ASUS actually said that. I forgot. They sent that in. No relation to movies whatsoever. It's all real. Very official quotes. Anyway, the motherboard's GC_HPWR slot, presumably meaning graphics card _high power, is present just past the edge of the PCIe slot normally. Video cards would carry power through the PCB foot rather than through a cable. Now, if this sounds familiar, ASUS previously debuted these at Computex, and at that show, only one of the demo systems incinerated in the week it was on display. Better metrics than 12-volt high power. Concerns for this connector are pretty obvious. They remain mostly the same as they were previously, but because it's getting shown again, and it seems like ASUS is trying to make this a thing, we'll talk through it again. Now, there are some potential upsides. One of them is just better control over the whole power delivery and how it all connects, and hopefully sockets better, and you can use higher quality thick coppers to transfer all the power, whatever. So maybe there's some upsides there. But some of the problems include, first of all, video cards now have a minimum length if they go in that slot. So if it's a card that will get PCIe power and it gets power through a foot like that, now the card has to reach some minimum length to meet the slot on the board, which would minimize sort of the market for really small video cards where they can exist. Another concern is that it makes motherboards way more expensive potentially, and it sends more power through the boards, and it's kind of like moving the problem from one place to another, and now we just wait and see what new issues arise from that spot for the problem rather than the previous spot for the problem. Additionally, this would eliminate all backwards compatibility with the new devices if they have that power delivery on them, and no PCIe power through cables as an option. And then it could also be a concern for future compatibility if that design just happens to change because it's new and it's not really tested and known yet. So it could definitely restrict card designs to conform to physical spacing for that connector. Failures could also be potentially more catastrophic or at least more damaging because now they will fuse the two parts together. So now you're going to have not just a melted cable and maybe a power supply that might or might not be expensive with the video card, but also you're going to have the melted motherboard. So you'll have the power supply might be fine now in this situation, but it might not be, and that's part of the problem. So board, very expensive these days, and video card, very expensive. So they would have to really nail the design. But anyway, there's no price or release date for this motherboard yet. And previously, it seemed like something they were just doing for show. So who knows, it might or might not come to exist in sort of a meaningful capacity. Up next, SoftBank Group is set to acquire Ampere Computing. SoftBank is the investment company that has held ARM. They were the ones that NVIDIA was trying to buy ARM from. And it's set to acquire Ampere Computing for $6.5 billion. Now, Ampere Computing, if you don't know, is a fabless semiconductor design company, and they've mostly focused on enterprise server type of CPUs, high core count stuff, with a focus on energy efficiency in exchange for the relatively high performance. So these CPUs have been targeted at non-consumer use cases thus far, at least as far as our coverage spectrum goes. Now, in a press release, SoftBank and Ampere revealed that, quote, as part of the transaction, Ampere's lead investors, Carlyle and Oracle Corp, are selling their respective positions in the company. As you all know, AI is all the rage these days. And if you don't know, watch our very real investigation from April 1st, which is a very serious day, to learn more about CEOs and their obsession with AI. The original title for that, until I ran the one I did, was CEOs Say AI for 10 minutes and 12 seconds.
Is AI.
AI. AI.
AI.
AI. AI. AI.
AI. Four AIs. One AI.
Today is all about AI. AI. AI.
AI, AI, AI.
Okay, enough of that. We won't subject you to all of it this time. SoftBank Group's chairman and CEO stated in the press release, quote, the future of artificial, superintelligence requires breakthrough computing power. Ampere's expertise in semiconductors and high-performance computing will help accelerate this vision and deepens our commitment to AI innovation in the United States, end quote. SoftBank is headquartered in Tokyo, Japan, and Ampere Computing was founded in Santa Clara, California. Ampere's founder and CEO stated, quote, with a shared vision for advancing AI, we are excited to join SoftBank Group and partner with its portfolio of leading technology companies. This is a fantastic outcome for our team, and we are excited to drive forward our Ampere One roadmap for high-performance ARM processors and AI. Great, more AI. The acquisition is expected to close in the second half of this year if it doesn't face any major regulatory hurdles. Up next, new rumors emerging about Intel's battle-mage GPUs and specifically what would be considered the high end of them. There were rumors of Intel working on a video card with 24 gigabytes of memory and rumors that a GPU codenamed BMG-G31 is in the works. When Twitter user Thomas Goronsky asked if BMG G31 is dead, noted hardware leaker Jakin replied, quote, it died in Q3 of last year, end quote. Goronsky then followed up to ask, Q3? You mean Q4, last info on it? And the leaker then followed up and wrote, to clarify, the retail product died in Q3, end quote. WCCF Tech reported that BMG G31 was, quote, going to feature around 24 to 32 Xe2 cores with a 256-bit memory bus and 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, end quote. For context, the B570 card has 18 Xe2 cores, a 160-bit bus, and 10 gigabytes of GDDR6. The B580 card, on the other hand, has 20 Xe2 cores, a 192-bit bus, and 12 gigabytes of G6 memory. Now, this is a rumor, and this rumor is in conflict with other rumors that we've previously heard. So, short version is, we'll see what happens. But for some more detail, previously around the launch of B580, we had heard, or it was printed, I don't remember which it was, but definitely had conversations about this, where B770, if it will exist, and B750, same thing there, were basically hinging on the success of B580 and possibly B570. And so if those weren't successful, as far as we understood it, the plan was to kill the higher end parts. But what we had heard and read online in the time since the launch of those two was that Intel did consider them successful and that it would be working on a higher end GPU like a B770 or whatever they end up calling it. So there's some conflict here in these sets of rumors. Rumors like this have been wrong in the past, like with Intel's A580, for example, and some of its other ARC GPUs. So ARC's demise has been rumored many times. So far, not dead. But we'll see what happens with this one. Figured we'd bring it up just because it is in conflict with previous rumors. and we're just gonna have to follow it. If Intel does anything higher end with Arc, we'd expect it to be sometime in the middle of this year, as in maybe June to like August somewhere, but we'll see what happens. Up next, NVIDIA's 50 series laptop GPUs are now out in the wild. There's some testing on them. We're gonna recap some of that. Intel's Arrow Lake CPUs have also finally hit desktop, so some of those reviews landed on the same day. So NVIDIA officially announced 4 variants of the 50 series laptop GPUs. Those are the 5090, in giant scare quotes there, as we did in our title, the 5080, 5070 Ti, 5070, same thing for all those. Video cards, however, reports that there is a leak of a rumored 5060 and 5050 variant as well. Thus far, laptop reviews largely focused on the 5090 for the main SKU. There was a Razer Blade 16 in particular that was sampled, I think, by NVIDIA, and so that one got the first embargo lift, and then other 5090s got a later embargo lift. That was the predominant review sample, though. Compared to the desktop 5090, there's some really massive differences. First of all, the memory. So the 5090 laptop GPU does have more VRAM than its counterparts in the laptop space, but it's at 24 gigabytes, not 32 like you'd find in the desktop SKU for GDDR7 32 gigabyte there. And then also the laptop variant cuts the CUDA core count basically in half. So huge difference. They're really nothing alike. It is literally a 5080 size die for the 5090 laptop part, which is hugely misleading. This is a practice that we view as deceptive, and it's something that NVIDIA has been doing for a few years now. But it has not always been this way. It's been long enough, unfortunately, that the narrative is starting to shift, where NVIDIA has successfully re-architected it. And we saw a couple comments online where some people were like, well, hasn't it always been this way? What's the big deal? The big deal is it's deceptive, and no, it hasn't always been this way. So they used to put an M at the end of the GPU SKU name, and NVIDIA stopped doing that a few generations ago for reasons that are pretty obvious. They get to call it the bigger number because bigger number better, and not have to downclass it. Throw an M at the end of it at least so it's clear the distinction for people who might not otherwise know. But anyway, advanced users can realistically distinguish the differences. It's just the kind of everyone else that we always worry about with this stuff. As for performance, we flew the team from Just Josh, the laptop reviewers, out here to our lab to give them some guidance on acoustic testing, thermal testing, and other aspects of benchmarking. Josh and Sierra from their team are in sort of, we view as like the intermediate stages of growing just as we did. And when they contacted us to ask for help and guidance with testing, we were happy to do that. So their team has published their own huge review on their channel. We'll link that below. At GN, we only had hands-on with the 5090 SKU laptop for about 6 hours overnight. In that time, among other tests, I ran it through our standardized suite for Final Fantasy XIV at 4K and for Blender cycles rendering against desktop CPUs. You can actually find both of those charts and of course, their own charts in the Just Josh review. So we gave them a couple of voiceover clips, gave them those 2 charts, the 2 tests that I personally was able to have time to run. And if you want to see that data and learn about it, you can click the link below to support their channel as they continue to iterate and learn how to achieve their vision of in-depth laptop reviews. Late last year, we kind of did the inverse. We flew out to Jay to help him with his setup after he asked for it for the desktop GPU stuff. So we'll upload that soon. It took us a while to cut it all together, but that'll go up on the channel as well. Anyway, what's interesting is that between the aforementioned Razer Blade 16 and the MSI Raider AHX18, both couple the 5090 with an AMD CPU, at least in some of the SKUs. The 2 laptops use the Strix Point Ryzen AI 9 HX370. Normally, I would say that again and we'd cut the flub the first time, but that kind of just proves the point. They also use the AMD Fire Range HX3D Ryzen 9 9955 HX3D CPU for the MSI Raider AHX18. Now, historically, most NVIDIA-powered high-end gaming laptops have launched with the Intel CPUs. Those are still present. The one that we briefly tested was an Intel solution as well. We have a ton of other charts we threw together in our overnight stint with it. It was fun. I mean, I liked working on it because it's applying what we do for desktop to a different component category, and laptops have all kinds of variables that are difficult to control, and that's part of the fun with it. Not something we want to do a whole lot of, but we do have some extra charts. I'm trying to figure out right now if I want to do any extra testing and release more of a fuller kind of benchmark of focusing on just the GPUs and the CPUs, or if we just release the ones that we have and maybe a hardware news update or something. So anyway, we'll figure that out. We'll put it out there. Broadly speaking, at GN, we are big surprised, disappointed in NVIDIA's mobile GPUs. They are in particular misleading and deceptive with the naming once again. This continues, and it doesn't need to. But deception make money, so deception continue is apparently how we do things in the industry. The uplift was relatively small overall for the stuff we tested for the NVIDIA GPUs versus the prior generation. So there's some things that kind of mirror the desktop world, but overall, with the smaller die and with the significantly cut down, by name at least, SKUs, the performance uplift is just, it's not even as big in some places as you saw on desktop. So, and the price is also, of course, still high. Intel's Arrow Lake CPU mostly reflected the desktop lineup, so there are some areas where it's more efficient. That's kind of its main gain. And then there's a couple areas where we saw regression. So it really mirrors desktop pretty well, with the exception that efficiency in a laptop matters a whole hell of a lot more than in a desktop. Still matters in desktop, but in laptops, beyond just your price for electricity, there's obviously the battery life, and that has a significant impact on purchasing decisions. So Intel remains improved there at least. All right, maybe we'll look more into them, but you can check out the link below for the Just Josh video and see what they put together. Okay, next one. With NVIDIA heavily pushing the 50 series GPUs, 2 game developers have recommended that RTX 40 and 30 series video card owners use older drivers to combat stability issues. Specifically, Inzoi Studio, the developer behind the recently released Inzoi, noted that RTX 40 series GPU owners should use driver version 566.36, which released back in December. Inzoi has been a close partner of NVIDIA's for the 50 series, and in fact was kind of a major section of the press briefing for the 50 series architecture back when it was being announced. And for them specifically to note that the drivers have problems mean that the drivers having problems is causing them problems. The studio notes, quote, using driver versions 572.xx or later may result in occasional frame drops or stuttering, end quote. For 30 series graphics card owners, the developer recommends the latest drivers, but noted, quote, if issues persist, we recommend installing version 566.36, end quote. Similar sentiments were echoed by, I'm gonna go with Neopal, the studio behind the recently released game The First Berserker Kazan, who also recommended driver 566.36 for 40 series owners. They also say the 30 series owners should use the latest drivers, but again also state, quote, if the issue persists, please try installing version 566.36. And we have our own research piece coming on all of that. It'll be up basically immediately, so check back for that. Up next, Hyte, the computer hardware manufacturer and subsidiary of iBuyPower, has released a statement on the impact to its prices by tariffs. So this is a tariffs story. We'll stick to just kind of the news here and what Hyte is saying. The company also separately told GN that it was impacted twice by tariffs on some imports, where it claimed that the tariff on raw materials, such as steel or aluminum, for example, was applied to the completed product in addition to the completed product tariff, meaning that parts of the product were basically tariffed twice, as far as we understand it and as far as what they were saying. So this is having an impact on pricing. The company noted in conversation that without price increases, it claims it stands a risk of higher cost than MSRP in certain situations with some products. And so Hyte released an email saying that it is 1, lengthening its warranty to help offset the price increase, and 2, increasing prices. An email sent to community members was posted on Reddit and confirmed by GN as legitimate. The email via Reddit states, quote, Hyte was created to reimagine the modern PC, they say doing so at competitive pricing. Unfortunately, the latest tariffs imposed in the current US administration have begun making this untenable. Regrettably, we must increase our pricing due to the unprecedented and aggressive tariffs being imposed on our products until further notice. This was not a decision we made lightly. Hyte continues, quote, while the tariffs are out of our control, our commitment to the product's quality and customer experience remains stronger than ever. As such, we will be increasing the warranty coverage on all our PC cases, including riser cables and display upgrades, by 1 additional year. Despite tariffs, we kept increases to a minimum, ensuring our products remain accessible while maintaining the level of quality customers expect from us, end quote. Hyte's product table lists thermal interfaces as increasing by $1, frames by $3, USB hubs by $2, and its smooth lighting accessories by $5. The company's Y40 will go from $130 to $140, the Y60 from $180 to $200, and the Y70 from $220 to $240. The Y70 Touch Infinite will increase a painful amount from $380 to $440, or 16%. This isn't isn't the first time in GN's history we've reported on tariff increases impacting product prices. So just some historical information here. In about, I think it was 2017, we reported on several case manufacturers throughout the year who were doing what Hyte's doing right now. And those included Silverstone and Cooler Master that I remember in particular, where their budget cases had to increase to a point where it no longer felt like they were budget cases. And actually those prices never really came back down. So that category just kind of died. I mean, there are still budget cases out there. It's much smaller than it used to be though, in that $40 to $60 segment. A lot of those prices, plus inflation, of course, have just come up over time. But from what we've learned, this will happen industry-wide. It's just kind of a waiting game to see who can hold out the longest or who has the most margin where they can eat some more of that cost initially and stave off the increases to kind of be more competitive on the pricing for consumers. We've heard rumblings about new factories being built. Thus far, all the companies I've spoken to are investigating building factories in potentially Vietnam or Thailand as the main two areas. Taiwan has gotten increased focus. There's already a lot of manufacturing there, though, in this industry, but it sounds like there's more of that focus there as well. Haven't heard anything about U.S. factories, unsurprisingly, except for semiconductor plants. So Intel is building and TSMC are both building plants in the U.S. for silicon. And so the companies like the case manufacturers, coolers, motherboards, things like that, they're trying to stay closer to the regional supply chain. And then also, of course, labor is cheaper there, land is cheaper, few regulations for certain areas of manufacturing, things like that. So we'll see. We'll keep covering it and follow it as it goes. So far, though, Hyte is one of the first to publicly announce a price increase, although certainly we've already seen prices. I guess there was a little bit. ASUS said something about tariffs on the GPUs during the 50 series launch where their prices were higher than expected and they kind of threw their hands up and said tariffs. But it happened so close to launch. It's like, was the price real ever? But that was it. We covered that separately already. For our last story, we're going to round up all the cringiest April Fool's gags. The first one is our own, which wasn't really a joke. It was more of just a reflection of reality. The second one is actually from Yahoo. And the joke isn't the fact that Yahoo still exists, and it does. The joke is this keyboard. Yahoo shared their Yahoo Agricultural Interface, in which the company advertises its keyboard that allows you to, quote, touch grass like never before, with its grass-covered keycaps. We imagine it uses kale green switches. We wouldn't recommend this to someone who suffers seasonal allergies, but it might bring some life to your apartment. Oddly enough, for Dbrand's April Fool's joke, the company also advertised grass-covered accessories, writing, quote, it's time to touch grass. And we're not sure if all this grass talk is better suited to April 20th rather than April 1st. It's funny because April 20th is like 4/20, which reads like 420, which aligns with, if you think about the Yes and Cent module, it's kind of like that. So the funny part, going back to April Fool's jokes that somehow seemingly copy each other, NZXT, Palworld, and PUBG all had pranks relating to dating. PUBG released a video titled Winner Winner Romantic Dinner, in which the developer showcased a player in skimpy shorts for whatever reason and presented an option to, quote, spread love on the battlegrounds. First of all, gross. Secondly, it had such cringe phrases as, quote, you take my safety off. Next on the love ladder is Palworld, which released a trailer called, quote, more than just pals, end quote, and for some reason didn't just feature Nintendo in it. It advertised the game as, quote, a wacky school romance simulation that's taking the world by storm, exclamation point, and the game also advertises drinking, which we assume is to take the edge off of these gags. Last up in the cringy dating trilogy is NZXT, with its GG Match program, which the company billed as, quote, the ultimate dating platform for gamers, end quote. The company's press release reads that it's, quote, built to foster real connections through a shared passion for getting ripped up for gaming. GG Match is redefining how gamers meet, they say, interact, and form meaningful relationships, end quote. NZXT boasts that it's a way to find your perfect player too. The press release concludes by stating, quote, NZXT is dedicated to building exceptional gaming setups with award-winning cases, coolers, and accessories designed to support gamers of all levels, end quote. Maybe that's the real April Fool's joke. Like NZXT's other products, we assume that the soulmates and the boyfriends and girlfriends are rentals. What's that? No, yeah, Yeah, I know that's what it's called. I know that's illegal. It's not like that stopped NZXT in the past. Next up is actually from a tech publication. Early April 1st, before we had time to properly calibrate our BS detector for the day, Tech Power Up actually got us with a headline that read, "Surprise reversal. GeForce RTX 5090 found with too many ROPs." So that's where all the ROPs went. They took all the missing ones and they put them into special bins of the card. Now, in actual fact, I saw the headline, I saw the plus 8%, and I was like, that sounds about right. I don't know how you get extra ROPs given the die layout, but you know what? NVIDIA's fucked up this launch so bad, it seems like anything's possible. So I immediately went over to Reddit to start trying to find the source of it so I could buy the card. And Tech Power Up, you could have made a lot of money today, but I quickly saw that it was just a joke, but entirely believable, which says more about NVIDIA than anything else here. Well done by Tech Power Up, though. Next up is Corsair's Prism series gag, which advertises hardware and peripherals that, surprisingly, don't look half bad. The company's April Fool's prank harkens back to a retro era and pushes a clear atomic purple color on its 4000D case, K65 keyboard, M75 mouse, and Titan 360RX liquid cooler. Aesthetically, the peripherals look a bit like the old translucent Nintendo 64s. Last, and certainly least, is Razer's Skibbity headset, which wins our award for cringiest April Fool's gag. It's a faux device that the company claims is the, quote, world's first AI-powered brain rot translator headset, end quote, and its purpose is that it, quote, auto-translates Gen Z voice chats in real time. For instance, in the trailer, it translates the message, "I think you're cute," to "Ni hao, fine shit." First of all, Ni hao isn't Gen Z, it's literally just another existing language. It's Mandarin. It's not, that's like, not at all what, I don't know. I don't get it. What I do get is that nothing says good marketing like punching down on your own audience. So great job, Razer. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, as always. There was one more I'll point out. Dragon Ball Z announced a phone or something. So anyway, that's not real, sadly. That's it for this one. Subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to support us directly, or patreon.com/gamersnexus if you'd like to throw a few bucks our way to support our reporting, our testing, and subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time.